Lesson 4 covers basic CSS. We cover the CSS that you will be using almost every week from now until the end of the semester. There's a lot in CSS, and it's kind of split into like basic CSS and something called CSS3, which is newer CSS. And the newer CSS has like animation and some other cool stuff. And we get into that in lesson 9. But in lesson 4, we are covering CSS that is pretty basic that you really need to know and you will be applying every single week. And you will notice in lesson 5 and lesson 6, we add in more and more CSS every week related to the different topics that we're covering. So this is kind of your CSS foundation in this particular lesson. Just like images and links, the file names and folder names are case sensitive when they are online. So, your CSS may show up fine when you view the page offline, but when you pull it up live, if you don't see that CSS, then look at the folder name and look at the file name and make sure that what you have matches how you spelled them and your upper and lower case lettering 100%. To see a video on that, I've added a video to lesson 3 and lesson 4 because that's typically where you run into these problems. So we will start out by reading pages in the book that specifically deal with CSS and the CSS that we are going to be covering this week. Then you're going to go into the lecture demo, and we kind of give you a background on what CSS is and the terminology that you need to understand. This terminology is important because when you do your certification exam at the end of the semester, they use this terminology. So understanding what things are called is important. And there are lots of live, view it live links that you can select. So you can kind of check this out in an editor that actually lets you change things. So you'll notice that the color red is here. And we do talk about how to specify color, but there is something called a color name, and those are just normal colors, right? So if I want to change this to orange, I can. And if I want to change it to pink, okay, so you can see that you can pretty much different colors that you could think of, like normal colors, it will change it to those. And text alignment is what you would expect. This is centered. The alignment that you get in word processing, left alignment and right alignment is also available in CSS. So you can kind of make little changes and run it and see what it looks like. And so as you're going through here, we talk about different ways to add CSS to your pages, and you will be learning and practicing all 3 ways. And the reason CSS is called cascading style sheets is because you can have an external style sheet. And those styles can be overridden by an internal style sheet. And those styles can be overridden by inline styles, which are right in the HTML. So that is why it is called cascading, right? You can have a style sheet here one internal one that overrides it, one inside the HTML tag itself that overrides everything else. And you will be creating all three types, so you'll become familiar with those. And I do have an example. This is actually the CSS that I use for my 180 website. Okay, and you'll be like, oh my gosh, I have no idea what all of that means. That looks complicated. It's not really all that complicated. You'll notice there's a lot of repetition here. We've got font family and color, font family and color. So you'll notice the same CSS is used over and over again. Okay, down here in the table, we've got font family and color. So within a couple weeks, you will know what all of this CSS is and what it does. So, but this is an external sheet. Here is a link to an internal sheet, which is right here. Okay, and then there's also a link to an inline style. So you can kind of see what all of those look like. Okay. And for your certification exam, you do need to understand how that whole cascading thing works. You know, how this type of style overrides everything else. Okay? And we'll be working a lot with CSS. So I'm confident that you will all understand it really well by the end of the semester. So this gets into the syntax. It's actually pretty simple syntax. You've got your property on the left, a colon, and the value on the right. And there are specific values that you can use for each of these different properties. Um, so what happens if you use the wrong value? Um, it tends to ignore it. Okay, so you won't see the CSS apply in the way you expect it to. And if I see that you've used wrong properties, I will tell you that as well. So this gets into, you know, how do you set up an external link? What are the different attributes you can use? How do you create an internal style sheet? And how do you do an inline style? Then we get into all the different ways you can specify color. So I'm going to let you go through and read this. You certainly don't need me to read through all of this for you. I did include information on color theory um, and examples of good websites and poor websites. Color is something that is difficult for some people, like what colors look good together? How can I choose colors for my pages? And so that is why I included the color theory. And down here, we've got harmonious and complementary colors. This will help you determine what colors to use in your pages. Okay, so analogous colors actually go quite well together, and that's what you see in nature. Complementary colors also look good together. You might do like a little alternate complement here where you've got analogous colors and then kind of a color that's a complement to add a little pop of a different color. So you can kind of look at these different color schemes. And what I prefer in my own pages is more of an alternate complement. That's what I like. And you guys will find things that you like as well. Talks a little bit about, you know, how colors appear different when they are on different types of backgrounds. So that's another thing that you need to be somewhat aware of. In case you guys are curious how hexadecimal colors work, I did explain it to you. Are you going to need to memorize this? No, but what you do need to know is that the first two values are red, the second two are green, and the last two are blue. That you need to know for your certification. So if you saw something like this and the only values here were in red, you would know the color is going to be red. And likewise, if the only values were in green, then you would expect the color to be green. Okay, that's the kind of thing you need to know. Lots of websites to help you select color. You can also upload graphics to Lunapic, and it will generate a color palette for you based on the colors in your graphic. That's also kind of a nifty way to choose colors that are going to go with whatever graphic that you've picked. And then we get into more CSS that deal with background graphics. Some of this you've already used. We get into fonts and font families, okay, and how to use Google Fonts. Okay, so I will let you guys look through all of this. And then we get into the textbook assignment, which is where you are going to apply the information you read in the book and in the lecture demo. And the textbook assignment has videos for each section. And I am providing files for you. So you are going to want to create the lesson 4 folder. You are going to want to download the files to specific folders. Inside your lesson folder, you will have a media and a CSS folder, and you'll be downloading various files. And it's really important when you download these files that you right click on them and save target or save link as, okay, because that will download them correctly. So there are videos with each of these sections. You will have several different files that you're working with. A couple of the files you'll be copying from your lesson 3 folder into your lesson 4 folder so you can modify them. And once you are done with this, you go to the bottom, it kind of describes what you will be turning in and how many points the different things are worth. And then we get into the lab assignment. So the lab assignment is not directive. They typically let you be a little creative. There is a video you can watch. In this particular one, you're going to be doing an internal style sheet. And you're going to be picking your colors. I'm not going to be telling you what colors to pick. This is a sample of the CSS that you are going to need. Okay, but this is not really something you're going to be able to copy paste because this isn't CSS. This is just telling you what you need and how many points it's worth. Here's an example. Okay, and so you're going to need to do something similar and create that internal style sheet. But you can see you're going to need to apply font family, font size, padding, either change the color, the text color, or the background color. And you can see in a lot of these I did both, right? So the background color here was changed to green and the text color was changed to white. Here, I only changed the background color. I did not change the text color. So, it's going to be up to you how you do that. Part 2 of this assignment is going to be updating your assignment page with links and doing some CSS styling. So here's an example of what the links could look like. And then you're going to be doing an external style sheet for your assignment page. And I kind of showed you an example of this in that error video, but here's an example. So the background graphic is there already. But here is my assignment page. I have a CSS folder, and inside that, I've got the external CSS. And so here is what I did for that. And you're going to be doing something very similar. Okay, and so a lot of times students will say, can I do more with the CSS? So this is minimum requirements. And if you guys want to do more, by all means, do more. When I say minimal requirements, that's exactly what it is. And you can see if you look at mine, I did do a little more. To get the rounded corners, I used something called border radius, which I really like. I added a little text shadow. So I did a little extra with the CSS. You can see I put a little left margin in. So yeah, by all means, if you want a little bit more, that is perfectly fine. Okay, and then in addition to that, um, and here I believe I am actually giving you a link to that assignment CSS so you can take a look at what I did. Um, but in addition to having the external sheet, I do want you to have an inline style for the footer. And so it does not really matter, all that much what you do to it. You should try to change the alignment, the background color, the text color, make it a specific width. And then you're definitely going to want padding so that the text isn't right up against the edge. So if you want to see what I did here, I've got a color applied. I did a little text shadow. I've got a background color, and you can see I did make it slightly transparent, put some padding in, rounded the borders, and made it a width of 50%. So it's 50% of the page. Uh, so once you're done with all of that, then you're going to transfer everything up to the web. And here is what you get points for. Now, as far as your structure should go, let me see if I still have this open. So you are definitely going to want your assignment page outside of your folders. So you're going to have your lesson folders, and then your assignment page will be outside of those folders, and you'll have a media and a CSS page. The reason you want your assignment page outside of the folders is so that it's easier to create links. Because if your assignment page is here, all you have to do is tell it to open the folder, and then you give it the name of the page. Okay, and you're only going to have one assignment page. I have two because I was showing you what common problems are in a previous video, but you guys are only going to have one. Okay, and yours is probably just going to be called assignments. So once you finish these, you're going to go into the Dropbox and submit the word done so that I know they are done. If you have a problem, you should email me, because if you go into the Dropbox and you submit done, I assume that your assignment is fine and it just needs to be corrected. So if there is a problem, you need to email me and let me know. Otherwise, I might not see it until, the assignment is due. Okay. And if you email me, I'll take a look at that before the assignment is due and tell you how to fix it. After you finish the assignments, we do have a little discussion. And now that you've had a little taste of CSS, is there anything you would like to learn more about? And so in the book, 91 through 106, There are some advanced CSS properties that you may want to learn more about. Um, Otherwise, there are some sites that are actually pretty good. You can go to CSS tips and tricks. And you can actually kind of look through here. So this might be kind of cool. You can kind of go through here and they do have a lot of advanced CSS here that, you may want to learn more about. In fact, let's see if I can find just the CSS section. So grid, flexbox, those are things we're going to be covering in the future. Centering might be a good thing for you guys to go through. Here's color, and they've got a lot of really, really good information here. So you could go here, or you can look in the book, and if anything piques your interest, go ahead and research it. In your posting, indicate which property you researched and provide a link to the article. I'm going to go ahead and add one so you can kind of see. So this is CSS for stroke and text fill. So for those of you that are familiar with the Adobe Illustrator, you can actually, it's kind of experimental, but you can actually use CSS to give the text a different color for the stroke and a different color for the fill, the color on the inside of the text. So it's pretty cool. And so here is a link to that. And I did find it at CSS Tips and Tricks. And so here is how we would have had to do something like that. We'd have to use text shadow in this long way by manipulating the lines. And this technique kind of gets rid of that. And instead, you basically use text dash stroke and text dash fill color. Okay, so this is using the old way, and this is using the new way. So I'm giving you like a little sample that you guys can actually copy and paste, and you can use. And so you can see how this actually works. And this should all be up on one line, and I think it will be. It's just kind of smashed because of the size of this box. But this will apply each one of those so you can kind of see how it works. So it's pretty cool if you want to check it out, and I'm going to go ahead and post. So you're going to do something similar. So in your posting, indicate what property you researched, provide a link to it. If you watched a video, provide a link to the video. Explain what the purpose of the property is and how it can be used. And then I want you to read postings from other students and reply to at least one. And if you guys want to use mine and reply to mine, that's fine. Or if your classmates have posted and you want to reply to one of those, that's fine too. I just put this out there as another option for you. Okay, then the last thing this week is just a very short survey of, how is this class going so far? It's like 1 or 2 questions for you to answer. Okay, it's anonymous, but this is a part of NMC's plan, check and do. So we make adjustments as needed. So if I notice a problem, I will make the adjustment in the course. So, feel free to kind of go through here, answer the questions. You'll notice it is totally anonymous. And I read that feedback and make adjustments if possible. Okay, so have a great week. Let me know if you run into problems or have questions. And I think you guys are going to really enjoy CSS. So have fun.